Hana walked through the giant metal doors of the Galactic Military Academy Combat Hall. Her small earth boots made quiet sounds on the shiny floor that stretched far ahead of her. The ceiling was so high, she had to tilt her head back to see the top where bright lights hung like tiny suns all around her were students from different planets across the galaxy. Some had blue skin and 4 arms. Others had scales that caught the light like green mirrors. A few had wings folded against their backs while some stood on 6 legs instead of 2. The air hummed with different languages and the sound of advanced weapons being tested. Hana wore simple black pants and a plain white shirt from Earth. Nothing fancy or high-tech like the other students who had combat suits that glowed with energy shields. Her only possession was a small canvas bag that held her few belongings. She had traveled for 3 months through space to reach this academy on the edge of known civilization. The other students barely looked at her as she walked past them. They were too busy practicing with plasma rifles and energy swords that could cut through solid metal. Hana found an empty seat in the back corner of the massive hall where shadows made her almost invisible. She sat quietly and watched everything with dark eyes that missed no detail, Commander. Vex entered the hall and every conversation stopped immediately. He was nearly 3 meters tall, with thick gray scales covering his entire body. 4 yellow eyes scanned the room like a predator searching for prey. His home planet Drakmor was famous across the galaxy for producing the best warriors. No one had ever defeated a Drakmor in single combat. His boots made heavy sounds on the metal floor as he walked to the center of the training area. Each step showed the power in his muscled legs that could crush stone. His clawed hands were bigger than Hana's entire head, and everyone knew those claws could tear through battle armor. Like paper, Commander Vex stopped walking when his 4 eyes found Hana sitting in the back corner. A low growling sound came from his throat that made several students step backward in fear. His reptilian face showed the same expression a hunter might have when finding weak prey. "Another human," he said in a voice that echoed through the entire hall. The words dripped with disappointment and disgust. "I suppose Earth Command thinks sending their weak species here will somehow make them useful against real enemies." Students from warrior planets began to laugh and whisper among themselves. They had heard stories about humans being soft creatures from an easy world where nothing dangerous existed. The Academy database listed Earth as a garden planet with gentle weather and friendly animals. Hana said nothing. She had heard these comments many times during her journey to the Academy. Most aliens believed humans were fragile beings who needed protection from the harsh realities of galactic warfare. They thought Earth was a paradise where humans lived comfortable lives without any real challenges. What they did not know was that Hana came from the mountains of Korea, where winter temperatures could freeze exposed skin in minutes. She had learned to hunt wild animals with her bare hands and could walk for days without food or water. Her grandfather had taught her ancient fighting techniques passed down through generations of warriors. The other students continued to ignore her presence as Commander Vex began his lesson. He moved to a weapons rack filled with energy blades that hummed with deadly power. Picking up a sword that glowed blue with contained energy, he activated its cutting beam with a sound like lightning watch. Carefully, he commanded as he approached a practice dummy, made from material stronger than steel. The dummy was designed to withstand attacks from the most powerful weapons in the galaxy. Its surface was covered with sensors that would measure the force and precision of any strike. Commander Vex raised the energy blade above his head and brought it down in one smooth motion. The weapon cut through the practice dummy like it was made of soft clay. The 2 halves fell to the floor with heavy thuds that echoed through the silent hall. "This is what real combat looks like," he announced to the watching students. His 4 eyes gleamed with pride as he deactivated the energy blade. "Combat is about understanding your enemy and exploiting their weaknesses. Every species in this galaxy has developed natural advantages for survival." He pointed at different students around the hall. The Cretonian people evolved thick armor plating to survive their world of constant volcanic activity. The Zephyrians developed enhanced speed and reflexes on their high-gravity planet, where everything moves fast. The Thoraxians grew multiple arms to handle their complex tool-based civilization. Then his gaze fell on Hana again, sitting quietly in her corner. "Humans," he said with obvious disgust, "have no natural advantages at all. Weak bones that break easily. slow reflexes compared to most species, poor natural weapons with tiny teeth and soft fingernails. This is why human colonies require constant protection from stronger species. Several students nodded in agreement, even the ones who felt sorry for Hana. They had been taught that combat effectiveness came from natural physical advantages, and humans clearly had none that mattered in real warfare. Hana remained perfectly still, but her mind was working like a computer. She watched every movement Commander Vex made and memorized the way he held his weapons. She studied how he distributed his weight when attacking, and noted the brief moments when he was off balance between strikes. Her grandfather had taught her that the strongest weapon was patience. He had made her sit motionless in freezing mountain caves for hours, learning to control her breathing and heartbeat while dangerous predators passed nearby. She had learned that survival often meant being invisible until the perfect moment to strike. The Academy medical staff had insisted that humans needed special protection during training. They believed human physiology was too fragile for the intense combat exercises that students from warrior worlds could handle easily. Hana had been given basic equipment designed for species from peaceful planets. During the following weeks, she was only allowed to spar against other soft-worlders from planets with low gravity and mild climates. The instructors worried that pairing her against students from warrior cultures would result in serious injury or death. They saw her small frame and assumed she would break like glass under pressure, but Hana had grown up on Earth where danger lurked everywhere. She had learned to identify venomous snakes by the sound they made moving through grass. She could predict weather changes by watching cloud patterns and had survived blizzards that would kill most galactic species within hours. Her homeland was filled with predators that could tear humans apart, tigers that could crush skulls with their jaws, bears that weighed more than small vehicles, venomous creatures whose bites could kill in minutes. Yet humans had not only survived but thrived in this dangerous environment. Every day at the academy, Hana sat in her corner and absorbed knowledge. She learned the fighting styles of dozens of different species and memorized their strengths and weaknesses. She watched how the Drakmor warriors moved and identified the split-second gaps in their defenses. Commander Vex grew increasingly vocal about human weakness, using Hana as his primary example. "Look at this creature," he would say. During lectures, humans evolved on a world so safe they never developed proper survival instincts. They have no natural armor, no claws, no venom, no enhanced strength. How could such a species contribute anything meaningful to galactic defense? Other students began to completely ignore Hana's presence. They focused on impressing their instructors and competing among themselves for top rankings in combat evaluations. Some even felt embarrassed to be in the same class as someone from such a weak species. But Hana was learning more than just combat techniques. She was studying the psychology of her classmates and instructors. She noted their arrogance and how they dismissed threats they did not understand. Her grandfather had taught her that overconfident enemies made the biggest mistakes. She remembered his words from their training sessions in the Korean mountains. The mountain does not boast about its strength, but it can crush those who underestimate its power. Be like the mountain, patient and still until the moment comes to show your true nature. As weeks passed, Hana became like a ghost in the academy, invisible to those who thought they knew everything about human limitations, but she was always watching, always learning, always preparing for the moment when she would reveal what it truly meant to be human. The alien students continued their training, believing they understood the natural order of galactic species. They saw strength in claws and armor and speed, but failed to recognize the deadliest weapon of all. A mind that refused to quit no matter how impossible the odds appeared. Hana smiled quietly to herself as she watched another demonstration of alien combat prowess. Soon they would learn that humans had survived Earth, not because it was safe, but because it was the most dangerous world any of them could imagine, and that lesson would change everything they thought they knew about weakness and strength. 3 weeks passed since Hana first walked into the combat training hall, and nothing had changed in how the other students treated her. She remained invisible to most of them, just another weak human who would probably fail out of the program and return to Earth with stories of how tough galactic military training really was. Every morning she arrived early and sat in the same back corner watching as alien students practiced with weapons that could level buildings. The Cretonian students wore powered armor that enhanced their already massive strength, while Zephyrian students moved so fast they appeared as blurs during combat drills. Hana was given basic training equipment that the Academy medical staff deemed safe for human physiology. A simple practice sword made of soft metal that could not cut anyone. A padded training suit designed for species from peaceful worlds where combat was more like a gentle sport than real warfare. During sparring sessions, the instructors carefully paired her only with other soft-worlders from planets where the most dangerous creature was something like a rabbit. Students from these worlds were just as confused about galactic combat as the instructors assumed humans were. There was Minho, from Serenity Prime, a world where the weather was always perfect and food grew on trees without any effort. His people had never experienced war or even serious conflict, and he flinched every time weapons were activated nearby. He treated combat, training like an academic exercise he hoped to pass without getting hurt. Ginny came from New Eden, where advanced technology had eliminated all forms of danger centuries ago. Her species had evolved past the need for physical conflict, and she found the entire concept of combat training disturbing and primitive. She often asked Hana why humans would want to learn such violent skills. During these carefully controlled sparring matches, Hana appeared clumsy and uncertain. She stumbled at the right moments and made her movements look awkward and uncoordinated. The instructors nodded approvingly, thinking they were protecting a fragile human from injury. But what none of them noticed was how Hana moved when she thought no one was watching. Her balance was absolutely perfect even when pretending to stumble. Her breathing remained controlled and steady, even during the most intense practice sessions. Her eyes constantly tracked multiple opponents even when she was supposed to be focusing on just one. She had learned this deception from hunting in the Korean mountains where appearing weak and harmless often meant the difference between catching prey and going hungry for days. Her grandfather had taught her that the best hunters never let their targets know they were being hunted until it was too late. Commander Vex grew more vocal about human limitations with each passing day. He used Hana as his favorite example during lectures about species hierarchy and natural combat advantages. "Look at how this human moves," he would say, while she pretended to struggle with basic sword techniques. No natural grace, no instinctive combat awareness, no killer instinct. The other students would nod, and some even felt sorry for Hana, thinking she was trying her best but simply could not overcome her species' biological limitations. They had been taught that warrior cultures produced warriors while peaceful cultures produced farmers and artists and scholars. What they failed to understand was that Earth was not a peaceful culture at all. Humans had been fighting for survival every single day for millions of years, not against other intelligent species, but against a planet that seemed determined to kill them in countless creative ways. Hana remembered her childhood in the mountains where winter storms could appear without warning and bury entire villages under meters of snow. She had learned to read the sky and feel changes in air pressure that warned of deadly weather. Approaching her family had survived because they never relaxed their guard. She thought about the wild animals that shared her homeland. Tigers that could smell human fear from kilometers away and would hunt anyone who showed weakness. Bears that could run faster than most vehicles and climb trees better than professional athletes. Venomous snakes that struck faster than the eye could follow. Every human child learned to identify dangerous plants by sight and smell, because eating the wrong berry or touching the wrong leaf could mean death within hours. They learned to purify water because drinking from the wrong source could cause diseases that killed even the strongest adults. But the galactic database listed Earth as a garden world because human cities were beautiful and peaceful. It showed pictures of parks and beaches and mountains that looked safe and inviting. What it did not show were the predators hiding in those beautiful forests, or the deadly weather that could turn paradise into hell without warning. Commander Vex particularly enjoyed describing how Drakmor warriors were trained from birth to fight and kill. He would demonstrate combat techniques that had been used to conquer 3-star systems, telling stories of battles where his people had defeated enemies who outnumbered them 10-1. His species evolved on a world where only the strongest survived to reproduce. He explained to the fascinated alien students, every Drakmor child must kill their first predator before they reach adulthood or they are considered unworthy of the family name. We are born warriors shaped by a harsh world that demands excellence. Hana listened to these speeches and smiled quietly to herself because she knew something. Commander Vex did not understand Drakmor had been tamed by their ancestors who had killed or driven away all the major threats. Drakmor children grew up in cities protected by advanced technology and fought predators that were kept in controlled environments for training purposes. But Earth was still wild, still dangerous, still trying to kill every human every single day. Humans did not fight staged battles against contained predators. They fought for survival against an entire planet that had not been conquered or tamed. They lived with danger because they had learned to be more dangerous than anything trying to kill them. During weapons training, Hana was given the simplest equipment while other students used advanced energy weapons that could punch holes through armored vehicles. She practiced with a basic training sword that would not cut paper, while Kryptonian students wielded plasma blades hot enough to melt steel. The instructors worried that giving humans real weapons would result in serious accidents. They had read reports about human clumsiness and poor reflexes, and did not want to be responsible for a training fatality that could damage relations between Earth and the Galactic Council. But Hana had been using real weapons since she was old enough to walk. Her grandfather had given her first knife when she was 5 years old and taught her to hunt rabbits in the mountain forests. By age 10, she could kill and clean a deer by herself and had learned to make weapons from stones and branches when modern tools were not available. She watched the alien students struggling to master energy weapons that required perfect timing and coordination. They relied on the technology to do most of the work for them while she had learned to make every movement count. Because human weapons required skill and precision to be effective, the Zephyrian students were fastest, but they depended on their enhanced reflexes and became confused when facing opponents who did not move predictably. The Kryptonian students were strongest, but their heavy armor made them slow and they had trouble adapting when enemies used their weight against them. Each species had developed incredible natural advantages on their home worlds, but they had also developed dependencies on those advantages. They fought the way their biology intended them to fight, following patterns that had been successful for thousands of years. Hana had learned to fight the way humans always fought, by adapting to whatever situation presented itself and using every possible advantage, no matter how small or unexpected. Her grandfather had taught her that humans were not stronger or faster or tougher than other predators, but they were smarter and more stubborn. As the weeks continued, Commander Vex announced that combat evaluations would begin soon, and students would be ranked according to their battle effectiveness against different types of opponents. The lowest-ranked students would be sent home as failures, while the highest-ranked would be selected for advanced military training. The alien students began training even harder, preparing for evaluations that would determine their future careers. Some formed study groups to practice together while others sought private tutoring from advanced students. All of them ignored Hana, completely assuming she would rank at the bottom and be eliminated quickly. But Hana was not worried about the evaluation. She had been preparing for this test her entire life on a world where failing meant death rather than just embarrassment. She had learned patience from her grandfather, who had taught her that the right moment was worth waiting for. No matter how long it took, soon the other students would discover what it really meant to underestimate a human who had grown up on Earth, where survival was not guaranteed and weakness was not tolerated. The Academy was about to learn a lesson that would change everything they thought they knew about humans and combat, and the difference between appearing weak and actually being weak. The combat evaluation day arrived with the sound of weapons being tested throughout the Academy halls. Students from warrior worlds practiced their deadliest techniques, while others nervously checked their equipment one final time. The air hummed with energy shields and plasma weapons as everyone prepared to prove their worth. Hana sat in her usual corner wearing the same simple Earth clothes she had worn since arriving at the Academy. Her canvas bag contained nothing special, just basic supplies and a few personal items from home. She watched the other students with calm, dark eyes that revealed nothing of what she was thinking. Commander Vex entered the training hall wearing his full ceremonial armor that gleamed like polished metal under the bright lights. His 4 yellow eyes scanned the assembled students with the confidence of a predator who had never known defeat. The scales on his massive frame caught the light as he moved to the center of the training area. Today, "We will demonstrate the importance of proper combat readiness," he announced in a voice that echoed through the silent hall. His clawed hands gestured toward the various weapons and training equipment arranged around the room. Every species must understand their place in the galactic hierarchy of warfare. The alien students stood straighter and paid careful attention, knowing that their instructor was about to deliver an important lesson about combat effectiveness. Commander Vex was famous throughout the galaxy for his tactical knowledge and had personally trained warriors who now commanded entire fleets. "I need a volunteer to demonstrate basic defensive techniques against a superior opponent," he continued while his four eyes moved. Slowly across the assembled students, he deliberately passed over the Kryptonian students with their natural armor and the Zephyrians with their enhanced speed. His gaze lingered on students from peaceful worlds who looked nervous and unprepared for what was coming. Several took small steps backward, hoping to avoid being selected for what would obviously be a painful and embarrassing demonstration. Then Commander Vex's eyes found Hana sitting quietly in her back corner, and a satisfied expression crossed his reptilian features. He had been waiting for this opportunity to prove his point about human weakness in front of the entire Academy. He said, pointing a clawed finger directly at her human girl. "Come forward and show this class what your species considers adequate preparation for galactic warfare." The other students began to whisper among themselves, some feeling sorry for Hana, but most eager to see the demonstration. Hana stood slowly from her seat and walked toward the center of the training mat. Her movements were controlled and deliberate, showing none of the nervousness that Commander Vex expected from a weak species facing a superior predator. She carried herself with quiet confidence that puzzled the watching students. The size difference between them was enormous as Hana took her position on the practice mat. Commander Vex stood nearly 3 meters tall with muscles that could crush steel beams. His natural armor plating had evolved to stop weapons that could penetrate most artificial materials. "This demonstration will prove why humans require constant protection in combat zones," Vex announced to the gathered students. "Their weak physiology simply cannot handle the physical demands of warfare against properly evolved species." He activated his practice weapons, which glowed with contained energy. Hana wore no armor and carried no weapons, just her simple earth clothing that looked almost primitive compared to the advanced equipment surrounding her. The Academy medical staff had insisted that she use protective gear, but she had quietly refused, saying it would interfere with her movement. Several instructors moved closer to the training mat, ready to stop the demonstration if Hana appeared to be in serious danger. They had emergency medical equipment prepared because they expected the encounter to end badly for the small human girl. The alien students gathered around the edges of the mat, forming a circle to watch what they assumed would be a quick lesson in species superiority. Many activated recording devices to capture proof of human inadequacy that they could share with friends from their home worlds. Commander Vex began to circle Hana like a hunter stalking wounded prey. His heavy footsteps made the metal floor vibrate, and his weapons cast blue shadows across the training area. He moved with the calculated precision of a warrior who had killed countless enemies. "Begin when you are ready," he commanded, expecting Hana to attempt some clumsy human fighting technique that would be easily defeated by his superior size and natural weapons. He had fought humans before during border conflicts and had never been impressed by their combat abilities. Hana took a simple stance with her feet shoulder-width apart and her hands relaxed at her sides. She showed no fear, no tension, no sign of the panic that Vex expected from a creature facing certain defeat. Her breathing remained steady and controlled, as if she was merely standing in a peaceful garden. The watching students held their breath as Commander Vex raised his energy weapon, preparing to deliver what he intended to be a quick and decisive strike that would end the demonstration he wanted to prove his point about human weakness without causing permanent injury. What none of them understood was that Hana had been waiting for this moment since she first walked into the academy. Her grandfather had taught her that patience was the most important weapon and that the right opportunity was always worth waiting for. No matter how long it took, she had spent weeks studying Commander Vex's movement patterns during his demonstrations. She knew exactly how he distributed his weight when attacking and had identified the brief moments when his superior size became a disadvantage rather than an asset. Hana remembered her training in the Korean mountains, where her grandfather had taught her to fight opponents much larger and stronger than herself. She had learned to use an enemy's strength against them and to strike at precisely the right moment when they were most vulnerable. The mountain teaches us that size alone does not determine the winner. Her grandfather had said during one of their training sessions, "A small avalanche can bring down the mightiest peak if it strikes at exactly the right place and time." Commander Vex moved forward with his energy blade raised high, expecting to end the demonstration with a single overwhelming attack he had used this same technique to defeat hundreds of opponents and saw no reason why a weak human would present any different challenge. But as his weapon began its downward arc, Hana was already moving with a speed and precision that shocked every watching student. She had read his intention before he fully committed to the attack and was positioning herself to turn his advantage into her opportunity. The alien students leaned forward, unable to believe what they were seeing. The small human girl was not cowering or attempting a desperate defense. Instead, she was moving toward the massive Drakmor warrior, with the confidence of someone who knew exactly what was about to happen. Time seemed to slow as Hana closed the distance between herself and Commander Vex. Her movements were fluid and controlled, like water flowing around obstacles. Each step was calculated to bring her closer to victory while keeping her clear of his weapons. What happened next would be talked about in Academy corridors for years to come and would forever change how the galaxy viewed humans and their place in the cosmic order of warriors. The demonstration was about to become something completely different from what anyone expected. Commander Vex realized too late that he had made a terrible mistake in underestimating his opponent. The human girl moving toward him was not the weak prey he had assumed, but something far more dangerous than anything he had encountered in decades of warfare. The lesson about species hierarchy was about to be taught, but not in the way anyone had planned. Commander Vex brought his energy blade down in a killing strike that would have split most opponents in half, but Hana was no longer where his weapon was aimed. In the first second, she had moved sideways with impossible speed, her small frame sliding past his massive form like smoke avoiding fire. The alien students gasped in shock as they watched the human girl appear, where logic said she could not possibly be. Her movement had been so precise and calculated that it looked almost like magic. The recording devices captured every detail, but the students watching could barely believe their own eyes. In the second, Hana's hand struck a specific point on Commander Vex's armored wrist with surgical precision. The energy blade immediately deactivated and fell from fingers that had suddenly lost all feeling. His weapon clattered uselessly on the metal floor as numbness spread up his entire arm. The watching students stared in disbelief as their mighty Instructor massive weapon fell away like a useless toy. Several instructors moved closer, thinking there must be some malfunction with the training equipment, because what they were seeing seemed impossible. But Hana had studied Drakmor anatomy during her weeks of patient observation. She knew exactly where their nerve clusters were located and how much pressure was needed to temporarily disable their motor functions. Her grandfather had taught her that every living creature had vulnerable points, no matter how well armored they appeared. The third second brought something even more impossible, as Hana grabbed Commander Vex's massive arm and used his own forward momentum against him. Despite weighing less than one of his limbs, she redirected his charge with perfect leverage, and timing physics still applied even when facing superior size and strength. Commander Vex found himself stumbling forward, unable to control his movement as the small human guided his massive bulk exactly where she wanted him to go. His natural armor and enhanced strength meant nothing when his own weight and speed were being used as weapons against him. The fourth second saw Hana demonstrate footwork that seemed to defy gravity itself. She moved like someone who had learned balance on ice-covered mountain paths where one wrong step meant falling to certain death. Her positioning was perfect, keeping her in control while staying clear of his claws. The alien students could not understand what they were witnessing. Their instructor, who had conquered entire star systems, was being systematically dismantled by someone they had dismissed as harmless. The natural order of combat they had been taught was collapsing before their eyes. In the fifth second, Hana struck another nerve center, causing Commander Vex's legs to buckle beneath his enormous weight. The Drakmor warrior, who had never known defeat in countless battles, found himself unable to maintain his balance against an opponent he could have crushed with one hand. The Watching students began to realize they were witnessing something that would change everything. They thought they knew about combat and species hierarchy. This was not luck or accident, but the result of skill and knowledge that none of them had. Recognize the 6-second revealed why humans had survived on Earth for millions of years. Hana moved like a natural predator, her strikes targeting anatomical weaknesses that required perfect knowledge of alien biology. She had turned the study of combat into a science of victory. Commander Vex attempted to grab his small opponent with claws that could rend metal, but Hana was already behind him, having read his desperation before he even knew he was going to make the move. Her ability to predict and counter his actions seemed almost supernatural. By the 7th second, the massive Drakmor warrior was completely off balance and falling toward the training mat. Hana could have delivered dozens of killing strikes, but instead chose precision over brutality. She controlled the encounter with surgical exactness. The 8th second showed a level of combat control that shocked even the most experienced instructors. Hana was not fighting to destroy her opponent, but to prove a point about assumptions and the danger of underestimating unknown threats. In the 9th and final second, Commander Vex found himself flat on his back, completely immobilized by pressure points that had been struck with mathematical precision. Hana stood calmly beside his prone form, her breathing still controlled and steady, as if she had just completed a gentle exercise. The training hall fell into absolute silence, broken only by the hum of ventilation systems and the distant sounds of other academy activities. The alien students stared at their defeated instructor and the small human girl who had accomplished the impossible in less time than it took to blink. Several students checked their recording devices to make sure they had captured what just happened. Others looked around the room, wondering if they were dreaming or if someone had activated some kind of training simulation. The reality of what they had witnessed was too shocking to immediately accept. Commander Vex lay motionless on the mat, his 4 eyes wide with a mixture of shock, confusion, and something the students were surprised to recognize as genuine respect. He had been defeated, but more importantly, he had learned something about humans that challenged everything he thought he knew. The instructors who had rushed forward to stop the demonstration found themselves frozen in place, unsure how to react to a situation that had never occurred in Academy history. A human student had just defeated their most accomplished combat instructor using nothing but knowledge, skill, and perfect timing. Hana remained standing quietly beside Commander Vex without any sign of pride or arrogance on her face. She had proven her point, but took no pleasure in the defeat of someone she respected as a teacher. Her expression showed the same calm confidence she had displayed throughout the encounter. The silence stretched for what felt like hours as everyone processed what they had witnessed. The fundamental assumptions about human weakness and galactic combat hierarchy had been shattered in 9 seconds by a girl in simple Earth clothing who had been completely overlooked. Finally, Commander Vex managed to speak in a voice barely above a whisper, how he asked with genuine confusion and growing respect. "How did you do that?" The mighty warrior who had conquered planets sounded like a confused student asking for explanation. The question hung in the air as alien students leaned forward, desperate to understand what they had just witnessed. Their entire worldview had been challenged, and they needed answers to make sense of the impossible demonstration they had recorded. Hana looked down at her defeated instructor with eyes that held no anger or triumph, only the patient understanding of someone who had waited a long time for this moment to arrive. She had proven that humans were not what the galaxy assumed them to be. The Academy was about to learn a lesson about Earth and its people that would change everything. They thought they knew about survival combat and the true meaning of being a warrior in a universe full of dangers both seen and unseen. What happened next would determine whether this demonstration was the beginning of new understanding or simply an isolated incident that would be forgotten. The choice belonged to those who had witnessed something they never expected to see. Hana extended her hand to help Commander Vex rise from the training mat, showing the same calm respect she had displayed throughout their encounter. The massive Drakmor warrior accepted her assistance with obvious confusion, still trying to understand how someone so small had defeated him so completely. "Thank you," he said quietly as he stood to his full height, towering over the human girl who had just proven everything he believed about combat was incomplete. His 4 yellow eyes studied Hana, with new interest, seeing her clearly for the first time since she had arrived at the academy. The alien students remained frozen in shocked silence, their recording devices still capturing every moment of the impossible scene before them. Several instructors moved closer but stopped at a respectful distance, unsure how to handle a situation that had never occurred in academy history. How Commander Vex asked again, his voice filled with genuine curiosity, rather than the arrogance he had shown before. How did a human girl defeat a Drakmor warrior in single combat? His question echoed through the silent hall as everyone waited for an explanation. Hana spoke for the first time since entering the combat training hall months ago. Her voice was quiet, but carried clearly to every corner of the massive room. You made an assumption about Earth based on incomplete information, she said with the patience of someone who had expected this moment. The watching students leaned forward to catch every word as she continued. You saw our database entries that list Earth as a garden world with beautiful cities and peaceful landscapes, but you never asked why humans developed advanced martial arts or why we needed them in the first place. Commander Vex nodded slowly, his military mind beginning to understand that there were gaps in his knowledge about human civilization. The Academy database focused on population centers and major cities, but had little information about the wilderness areas, where most of Earth's surface remained untamed. Earth is beautiful, Hana continued, but it is also trying to kill us every single day of our lives. We share our world with predators that can tear us apart in seconds, weather that can freeze us solid, or burn us alive, natural disasters that can destroy entire cities without any warning. The alien students began to whisper among themselves as they realized their assumptions about human weakness might be completely wrong. They had been taught that garden worlds produce soft civilizations, but Hana was describing something very different. We did not evolve claws or natural armor or venom glands, she explained, because we evolved something much more valuable, the ability to survive anything that tries to destroy us. Humans learned to fight not for conquest or glory, but because the alternative was extinction. Commander Vex's eyes widened as he began to grasp the implications. Your species developed combat skills as a survival necessity, he said with growing understanding. Every human is a product of millions of years of life or death encounters that most galactic species never experience. Hana smiled for the first time since arriving at the academy. My grandfather taught me traditional Korean martial arts in mountains where one mistake meant death from cold predators or falls. Every technique I know was developed by humans who had to be perfect or die. She gestured toward the other students around the training mat. We do not fight for territory or resources or dominance. We fight because our world taught us that survival requires constant vigilance and the willingness to do whatever is necessary to keep living. The revelation spread through the watching crowd like wildfire, as students began to understand that they had completely misunderstood what it meant to be human. Earth was not a peaceful paradise, but a death world that had forged its inhabitants into survivors. My people learned to hunt animals that could kill them with a single strike, she continued. We developed tools and weapons because our bodies were not naturally equipped for the dangers we faced. Every day of human existence is a test of our ability to stay alive. Commander Vex began to pace slowly as his tactical mind processed this new information. Your species did not conquer your world through superior firepower, he said. You survived by being smarter, more adaptable, and more determined than anything trying to kill you. Exactly, Hana replied. The galaxy sees our cities and thinks we are soft. But those cities exist because humans refuse to give up when faced with impossible odds. We built civilization on a world that did not want us to survive. The alien students started asking questions, eager to understand more about Earth and its people. They had spent months dismissing Hana as weak, but now realized they had been in the presence of something far more dangerous than any of them had imagined. Within days, the story of the 9-second defeat spread throughout the entire academy. Human students who had been overlooked and dismissed suddenly found themselves the center of attention as other species wanted to learn about Earth. Combat techniques, instructors began studying actual human history, instead of relying on simplified database entries that focused on peaceful aspects of human civilization. They discovered that Earth was still a wild, dangerous world where survival was never guaranteed. Commander Vex formally requested permission to study human martial arts, admitting that he had learned more about combat in 9 seconds than in decades of traditional training. "I have been teaching warfare," he said, "but you have been teaching survival." Hana became the most requested sparring partner at the academy as students from warrior cultures wanted to test themselves against someone who represented a completely different approach to combat. They discovered that fighting for survival created skills that fighting for glory never could. The academy curriculum was revised to include courses on Deathworld survival techniques and human combat philosophy. Students learned that the most dangerous predator was often the one that did not look dangerous until it was too late. Other human students began to arrive at the academy, and they were no longer automatically assigned to soft-worlder training programs. Instead, they were treated with the respect due to survivors of one of the galaxy's most challenging environments. Hana continued to sit in her back corner of the training hall, but now she was surrounded by alien students eager to learn from her. She had become a bridge between human potential and galactic understanding, teaching others that strength came in many forms. Commander Vex often used her as an example during lectures, but now his tone was one of respect rather than dismissal. Humans, he would tell new students, represent the ultimate example of adaptation and survival. Never underestimate a species that learned to thrive on a world trying to kill them. The galaxy began to understand that humans had not joined galactic civilization because they needed protection. They had joined because they were finally ready to face challenges beyond their own deadly world. The Deathworlders had arrived, and they were nothing like anyone expected. Hana achievement changed more than just academy policy. It transformed how the entire galaxy viewed humanity and opened the door for humans to take their place as equals among the stars. Her 9-second victory had proven that sometimes the greatest strength comes from being underestimated. As she watched new human students arrive at the academy, Hana remembered her grandfather's words about patience and the right moment. She had waited for her opportunity, and when it came, she had been ready. The mountain had finally shown its true strength. The galaxy was learning that Earth children were not soft creatures from a garden world, but survivors of the ultimate training ground where only the strongest, smartest, and most determined lived to see another day. That lesson would change everything.